What's up, everybody? Welcome to the final World Cup recap video here on Touchline Talk. Before I jump in, as always, be sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of the other videos I put out, that content I produce every single week. You can also find my written work by heading to Substack, touchlinetalk.substack.com, to become a subscriber there as well. Argentina find a way to capture a third World Cup title. There was so much that happened in this game. I'm trying to keep this video relatively short, so I'm going to focus more on sort of the bigger takeaways and try and incorporate what actually happened on the field as I'm talking about these. Because I could go for half an hour on all the things that happened in this game and the twists and turns we saw. The first thing I want to focus on goes back to the reason for optimism I had about this Argentina team heading into this tournament. I picked a reason for optimism for every single team. And the one I picked for Argentina was this idea of this is the best opportunity Messi has had to win a World Cup, not necessarily because of the team around him, but because we finally have a free Messi unburdened from this idea that he hasn't delivered a major trophy for Argentina. This is the first World Cup he's been able to say that because of that Copa America victory. And to me, it was not a coincidence that as that Copa America run happened and afterward, Argentina became the most informed team in the world and went on that incredible unbeaten run. We're destroying people left and right until Saudi Arabia happened in the first game of this tournament. And I was skeptical that Argentina were going to find a way to win this tournament, in large part because I just thought they were going to lose it at some point, because they had gone so long without losing. And I looked pretty smart after that Saudi Arabia game. Now, I didn't think it was going to be Saudi Arabia, but I did think there were going to be some low points and some struggles for Argentina in this tournament. What happened, though, is something I do not think, we're never going to know the answer to this, but I don't think would have happened for a previous edition of these Messi Argentina teams. And you saw it continuing through this game. To lose to Saudi Arabia in kind of embarrassing fashion, to become the first headline in a bad way of this World Cup, put yourself in a really tough situation to even get out of the group stage, to respond with 2 wins over good teams, to then, Australia made it a little bit tricky there at the end. It was not a convincing way Argentina saw that game out. To then blow the lead against the Netherlands, have to go to a shootout, find a way to survive, and then to be so thoroughly dominant in this game, to have a 2-goal lead, look like you were going to waltz to a World Cup title, and then again blow that 2-goal lead in similar fashion where it just kind of happens out of nowhere, and it happens in, I think it was 133 seconds or something. To then get the goal back, to not let that be the final moment, sort of the deciding, right? It looked like France could have gotten a third there and won this thing before we even got to extra time. But it's Argentina who get the 5th goal of the game. To then concede another penalty and have you think you've won it, you've overcome this incredible comeback by France, you blow that lead too, and then you rally to be so good in the penalty shootout. To me, those kind of things don't happen if you don't have this freedom and kind of this joy and happiness and togetherness this team has found, that I firmly believe is in large part because they don't have to talk about Messi not having a trophy, not being able to deliver Messi the trophy he deserves. All that stuff ended with Copa America. And so you saw a different Messi, you saw a different Argentina team at this tournament. I expected that going in, or at least if they were going to win this, it was going to be because of that. I thought that the other part of this I'll throw in there, more specifically. I thought that was a large reason why they had been so successful heading into this tournament. That's more what I'm getting at. And what you saw in this tournament, what you saw in this game, proved that thoroughly. I don't think 2018, 2014, 2010 Argentina are able to navigate all of the things this team had to go through to actually lift this trophy. Nothing about those teams and what we saw from them suggests, and go look at where they got. I understand Argentina got to a final and lost to Germany, but it just felt totally different heading into this tournament. And the way that there was no panic after that Saudi Arabia game felt totally different. And the other part of this is they still didn't play 90 minutes. That was one of the things that I was talking about heading into this game is France have looked really, really bad at times. And Argentina exposed them in a way that nobody else had been able to because they actually took advantage and they got the goals. But they played 80 minutes, not 90, lost concentration, and that's all France needs. And all of a sudden it's 2-2. It's not like this was perfect, that Argentina were completely convincing from the beginning of this tournament to the end. They certainly weren't. But that mental edge, that resiliency, the it factor, whatever you want to call it, mental toughness, that is why this team won this tournament. And that is something you really haven't seen in past iterations of this Argentina team during Messi's era. And so that's the first thing I want to identify and point out about this game. The second is what Angel Di Maria did. Angel Di Maria, and it does seem like he's getting some acknowledgement for this, which is very good to see. Think about the highlights of Messi's international career. 2008 Olympics. Who scored the goal in the final? Angel Di Maria. Who was the guy that scored the goal in that Copa America that finally delivered that trophy for Messi? Angel Di Maria. And who was the best player on the field in this World Cup final? The crowning achievement of Messi's international career? Angel Di Maria. Draws the first goal, is the main reason why Ousmane Dembele also was a reason why Ousmane Dembele got subbed after 41 minutes or whatever it was. But Di Maria just dominated the left side of the field. And all of the things that happened after that, I don't want his contributions to get lost in this. A, because very quietly, he is one of the clutchest players of this generation. He didn't need this game to prove it, but now he's got 3 different tournaments to point to where he was, and he wasn't as decisive in this game as he should have been because he got pulled because he was so good. His team had a 2-goal lead and looked like they were cruising, and then all of a sudden fell apart when he left the field. But to have somebody, of course Messi shines in all of these games too, but the guy who's actually, and Messi made plenty of contributions, scored the 3rd goal, penalties, all that. But there's a real world in which Messi's international legacy is so different if Angel Maria doesn't step up in these moments and continue to deliver. He wasn't playing for the most part in this tournament, and he gets the start, and he was sensational. So, and his overall career doesn't get the credit it deserves either, but specifically his contributions for Argentina, because Messi's going to get all the attention, and certainly he deserves most of it. But when we look back on this era of Argentina, when we look back on Messi's Argentina, we cannot forget how crucial Angel Di Maria was in the big moments. Was he delivering every single game the way Messi was? No. Was he carrying the team? No. But nobody is carrying a team by themselves. And that was one of the other things that was different about this Argentina team. From Julian Alvarez's contributions, and you started to see it in Copa America with Lisandro Martinez. Angel Di Maria is still there. Your midfielders played really well in this tournament. Your defense was still solid. Goalkeeping, obviously, with what Martinez was able to do. It kind of all came together where you got a terrific Messi and really good contributions from all of your role players. And what Di Maria did in this game was kind of the headline for that. The prime example of just how many different players played well for Argentina at this tournament. And then, of course, there's Messi. The comparison I want to make here that kind of I was starting to think about, admittedly, before France nearly won this game and sent it to extra time and then sent it to penalties, was, to me, and it is almost even more fitting this way, how this game actually played out and what it took for Messi to win. Because what I kept thinking about was Tom Brady coming back against the Falcons in the Super Bowl. And kind of having this moment where, and it is a little bit different because that was partially, I just can't believe the Patriots did that. And this was kind of the opposite because Messi was on the team that I can't believe this is happening to them. But to me, the comparison still stands. And it stands in this sense. I feel like that was the first time where people just kind of walked away saying, yeah, Tom Brady is the GOAT. There's no point having this conversation anymore. Look at what he just did. I really feel like that was a turning point in the GOAT conversation where certainly it's not like Tom Brady needed that to justify being the GOAT, but it kind of ended that conversation. And I feel like that's exactly what we got from Messi in this tournament. To be so good every single game, to now have most of the meaningful records when it comes to men's World Cups, appearances, minutes, he's up there in terms of goals, all that stuff. And to now have this, the biggest trophy, not the most difficult to win in terms of a competition level standpoint, because the level is just not anywhere near the Champions League. It's the reality of playing international when you just kind of show up and don't get to play with the guys every single day. But from a legacy standpoint, obviously, World Cup is top of the list. So Messi finally gets this. He finally gets the one thing he was missing from his legacy, from his resume, his trophy case. And now I feel like you just kind of look back and you go, I don't really know what else there is to discuss here. So I think that's where the similarity lies and why I was thinking about Brady's comeback against the Falcons, watching Argentina do this. And I sincerely hope we wouldn't have had a conversation and thought any less of Messi's career and said he isn't the undisputed GOAT if they would have lost this game. Because it's a game in a knockout tournament against a team that, by the way, despite playing poorly again, has so much individual talent that they still nearly found a way to win this game, and Mbappe had a hat trick. Sometimes weird things happen in this sport, and especially a sport, I mention this all the time, that's decided by 1, 2, 3 few moments. Mbappe created some of those moments in this game. To then go back and sort of rewrite everything because of that, to me, has always been ridiculous. It's the same issue I have with commentaries after the NCAA tournament. Single elimination is just cruel and unfair sometimes. And it doesn't mean we need to change the story. Which also goes to something I want to throw out there real quickly, that England was one of the best 2 teams in this tournament. Maybe 3 if you want to throw Brazil in there and say Argentina, Brazil, England. It would have been really interesting to see what would happen had England gotten to this game, because they were so much better than France, and they just caught the bad breaks, came as a penalty, right? This happens all the time. So Messi had nothing to lose in terms of his legacy in this tournament, unless they had bombed out in spectacular fashion. Then maybe we're having a conversation. If they had lost to Saudi Arabia, then drawn one of those 2 games, lost the other one, and finished with a point, okay, that's a little bit different. But Messi's gotten to 2 finals, even if he didn't win either of them. And you compare that to, and you look at the teams around him, and you compare that to, say, Neymar, and Brazil continually exiting in the quarterfinals. Now, I know they got to the one semi and look what happened. Where they're coming into the tournament, you're feeling like most talented team, second most talented team every single time. And they haven't even reached a final. That is something, it's not to really damage Neymar's legacy, but that's something I'll have a conversation about in terms of how the international game impacts a player's overall legacy. That is not... Yes, Messi's had some disappointing World Cups, but that's just not what Argentina have been at World Cups with Messi by and large. They haven't necessarily overachieved all the time. But he didn't need this to cement himself as the GOAT. To me, if you thought he was before the tournament, you felt that way regardless of whether they win this game or not. That's really what I'm getting at here. But what happened, because he now has this on top of everything else and is arguably walking away as the greatest World Cup player on the men's side ever, now there's just no hole to poke in the argument. You look at what he's done at World Cups versus what Ronaldo's done at World Cups. They both have one other major trophy at this point. And yes, you can say Euros are harder to win than Copa America. Fine. Messi still beat Brazil in the Copa America final. It's not like Copa America's a cakewalk. And so, it's similar to Brady. That nothing about this game necessarily should change somebody's opinion. And if because he won this, now he's the GOAT. I will never buy into that kind of thinking. But what it does is it checks another box off and it gives you another sort of hole that's closed that you can't poke at anymore. You could say, yeah, but Messi doesn't have a World Cup. Well, now he does. And not only does he have one, he was one of the best players at the tournament at the age of 35. What he is doing, and this is the final point I want to get at, what he is doing at his age is absolutely remarkable. The fact that he can still be the best, perhaps, the most important as well, player on a World Cup winning team is incredible. And so, I do want to mention this very briefly. If he does end up in MLS at the end of this PSG contract, with what he is doing at PSG, what he did in this tournament, this is not only because it's Messi, but because of the actual player, if you take his name away from it. This would be something MLS has never seen. The closest thing is maybe Zlatan, because of the amount of goals he scored and the fact that he was just so much better than everybody at times. But even he's inconsistent. He relies on service. The way he plays his prototype, he can only give you so much because he's such a pure striker. What Messi can do on the ball, we're talking about a whole different ballgame. If this really does happen and he is suiting up for Inter Miami. I'll save more thoughts on that until it actually happens. We'll have to see. But this guy is still playing at the highest level, club, international. He's still one of the very best players in the world. He showed you that in this tournament again. Now he has a World Cup to cement his legacy and kind of fill that one spot that was missing in his trophy cabinet. What a game. If France would have pulled that off, I don't even know what I would have said, to be honest. Argentina were so dominant. And then it just all came apart. And then Argentina regrouped, took the lead, were the better team over extra time, conceded again, and ultimately prevailed on penalties. Martinez doing his thing. The gamesmanship is elite, whether you like it or not. He is really good at that aspect of the game. He showed it in this one. That is all. Messi has a World Cup. What a way to end a very strange and thrilling, bizarre, unprecedented World Cup. Messi finally gets the trophy he has been craving. Thank you so much for tuning into this video. Thank you so much for tuning in to Touchline Talk throughout the tournament. Be sure to hit that subscribe button. I'll see you next time.